Thomas Green here with the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. On the episode today, we have Hans Kullberg. Hans, hello.
Hi, Thomas. How's it going? Great to be here with you.
It's great to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Hans, as you said. I am a proud father of four. I really take pride in my most important job. I know a lot of fathers say that being a father is the most important job, but it's something that I really try to make a lot of quality time with my kids, and also be present with them, be patient with them and everything else. And so, prior to being a father, I've been an entrepreneur. I also, currently have a job, just like many people, but most recently I've released a children's book, which has become an Amazon bestseller. And so that is inspired by a very important person in my life. I would love to talk about that, but so I'm working on a few other books as well. So I guess you can add author to my title.
Well, as a slight side note, I have ordered your book a few minutes before our podcast call. So your book is on the way. As a information for you, I'm going to get to read it. So thank you for creating it. Did you want to, for people who haven't ordered it yet, would you like to tell them a little bit about the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called Baby Aviva Orangutan Diva. And as I mentioned, I am a father of four, but the book is actually based on my third child. Her name is Aviva. And unfortunately and tragically, she passed away unexpectedly at 10 months old and 13 days in November of 2020. As a parent, as a father, it's been, as a person, it's been the most incredibly difficult journey, grieving journey throughout, the last 16 months or so. And one of the reasons I wanted to create the book was really to share Aviva's life, her personality, her spirit, her charm, her grace, her courage, which is embodied in this character named Aviva. So it's a little orangutan. She goes on really this journey, this quest. Their village is actually undergoing a lot of stress because they don't have food. And she's able to overcome a lot of different challenges by using her inner strengths, which she really is really true to herself. And so the underlying message of the book is really any kid that really faces challenge or hurdle in their life can really be inspired by this book to really see if there's a way that you can actually overcome that challenge. And so, for me, my purpose is really spreading and others in a very positive manner, children's, teachers, parents alike.
Thank you for telling us a bit about it. I do think it's great that something positive has come out of something tragic, as you say. I thought a lot about what I could ask you, because I think you probably experienced this in the sense that I think people are probably scared of not knowing what to ask, or scared of making it worse somehow because you're already going through enough. So I thought about the type of thing that I could ask you, which would be worthwhile. And the first thing I came up with was, what advice would you give to someone who is going through something similar?
Yeah. So for that bereaved parent, that griever, that person who's lost a child, and really, it doesn't matter what age. It could be a miscarriage. It could be there's a lot of parents that lose children at birth, or a toddler, or even if your child is 40 years old, it's still very painful, no matter what age your child is. And for that griever in and of itself, he or she should really take a lot of time to embrace that grieving process. It's something that I've realized, through reading countless of books and going through therapy, going through a lot of different bereaved parents groups, grieving groups, that those that really do embrace the process and really kind of fully feel all 5 stages of grief, and not try to put it in the past or lock it in a box, or put it to the side, are the ones that actually, do end up healing, if you want to say that, a little bit better. Um, Nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever bring your child back. That it will always be a part of you. And for us, as bereaved parents, we have to learn how um, to live with that very difficult sadness and pain and anguish, but also continue to live a life that we can find fulfillment and happiness and gratitude for each and every day. Holding those two at the same time is very difficult. But the one advice that my therapist that I went to for the very first time in my life, I've never seen a therapist. She really extolled the practice of self-compassion, self-care, and patience with ourselves, because us as grievers, we tend to look inwards and actually blame ourselves, and the could haves, would haves, should haves have all been circling through our heads, my wife and myself, and since that fateful day. Um, but the thing that I've realized is there's a very big difference between pain and suffering, and a lot of times those are kind of used in the same sentence or breath. But pain is something that we feel. We absolutely feel that loss, and it's going to be with us forever. But suffering is something that we get to choose. We get to choose, if we feel that on a day-to-day basis, if we put ourselves through a lot of anguish and suffering. It's really about how we actually handle that situation and how we actually embrace that situation, and I would say feel the full the full highs and lows, well, mostly lows of grief, but understand that pain will be part of you, but really try to be compassionate and patient with yourself. That's the biggest advice.
Thank you for sharing that. You really never know who's watching, so you could potentially make a big difference to someone with your advice. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing there is, I really do appreciate you asking the question, because it is something that a lot of society, I've learned, has tried to brush aside. A lot of times it's because, that friend, that colleague, that supporter, just doesn't want, as you said, doesn't want to make you feel more uncomfortable, doesn't want to make it feel, worse than it already is. And I think that is actually a misconception. And I'm actually, grateful that you actually asked that question, because what I found throughout my journey is that there's been people that have been very supportive and check in, regularly. And there's other really good friends that I just haven't heard from, haven't had a text message, or haven't had a call, in the last year and a half. And so it's been, strange on that account. But it's also something that I've learned over time, is that a lot of times people just don't want to make me feel uncomfortable. But that's actually a misconception, because I always love talking about my daughter. But it's usually the case they don't want to make themselves feel uncomfortable. And I know that talking about child loss is uncomfortable on a lot of different levels, and there's no real words that really would ever make it better. However, not the act of not checking in, and an act of not being supportive, and not saying anything is actually is actually worse than trying to do, trying to check in. And so I think there's this difference between space and distance, and space is really, that friend that really provides you that shoulder to lean on, that ear to listen to. Some of my best conversations have been friends on the other side of a Zoom call, just listening, listen to me be angry, listen to me cry, and just being there to give me that space. Whereas there's a lot of times people think, distance is actually the better route, and really being, thinking that that person doesn't necessarily want to talk to you. And so that's actually not, what I would advise if you do know someone that is going through grief. send them a text message, give them a phone call, say that you're thinking about them, that you're thinking about their loved one as well, because you never know, that could actually make a really big difference in their life.
It's also great advice. I think a lot of people could, benefit from that. So thank you. The other question I wanted to ask you was, of the things that people do talk to you about or you do discuss, what are the things that help you on the topic?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would actually say, you know, the things that people say, and there's certainly a whole spectrum of things that people say. Even just answering that question of how are you doing, it's actually a very loaded question, because if you really want to know how I'm doing, you'll ask, how are you feeling today? And there's a lot that I can actually say about that. But even like those comments that people say, well, your daughter is in a better place now, or she's, in the arms of God, or, God only tests the strongest of us, or the one that I personally dislike the most is I can't even imagine, which is a very common saying. People say it all the time. However, if you think about that, if you break it into, into actually what it means, it's like, I'm actually living through this painful experience, and it's a very real part of my life. But you as a supporter are sitting there saying you can't necessarily imagine, or can't even imagine, or sometimes I don't even want to imagine. I think the very first step to empathy is really, it's not putting yourselves in that griever's shoes, but it's more so being beside them and getting being able to kind of have those same feelings without actually having to go through it. And there's a really good analogy that I've heard. It's so with child loss, it feels, as a parent, it feels like I'm just, in this very deep well. If you think about a well that goes down into the ground, I'm sitting in this really deep hole, by myself. And there's people that come along, they look at the top of the well, they look down below, and they say, that's, I'm sorry that you're down there, by yourself. Let me know if there's anything I can do to get you out, or to help you. That's a very common refrain. And then they go on their way. They go to, do whatever they do for the rest of their day. However, those supporters that really are there, the ones that I really cherish, have been the ones that come to the well. They see me down below, and they say, I feel your pain. I see that you're suffering. I'm going to actually go get a rope or a ladder, and I'm going to come down that well. I'm going to sit there with you and be with you in this really dark place. And whenever you feel like it, I'll help you get out, and we can climb out of this hole together. And I think that analogy actually kind of encapsulates what has really been the difference between the support that I've had. And so some of those best conversations I've said, are those that I get to just, speak about Aviva. Even having this conversation, to tell you the truth, will make me feel just a little bit lighter. And nothing's ever going to change. But it actually allows me to, to actually get my feelings out, to actually be heard. And I think we're in this world of mindfulness, right? And we all talk about like, being connected with our own thoughts and meditation, et cetera. But I think a lot of things that are undervalued is actually the act of listening to others, and actually, those that are going through a lot of grief. What really helps is actually being heard. And so even a hug, there's been times where I just have a really big hug, and it's been very, just very nice, have been some of the most helpful things that people have ever done for me. So, but actually one other thing on that was, that's how people have best supported me. But in terms of remembering the legacy of my child, we've done a number of different initiatives to really kind of make sure that Aviva's legacy is prolonged, and doing The book is one of those. But when people actually do acts of service or acts of kindness to help others in Aviva's name, that has been some of the most touching and emotional times for myself and my wife, just to know that she can still have an impact on others.
That's great. Fantastic answer. And I can totally see, using the well analogy, how if someone were to use the phrase, I can't even imagine walking past the well if you were down there, I can see how that wouldn't be very helpful, or perhaps could be one of the worst things that you could say. So yeah, I understand that. In terms of your, I wanted to ask you about your dad hacks, because you mentioned in a message about you got some useful tricks to help parents along the way. Are you happy sharing that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Dad Hacks is still, it's still a work in progress. I hope to get that published later this year. But it is actually something that that I really started more than about 5 years ago now. So I just became a dad in 2016, and I actually, as a father, was actually going through a lot of postpartum depression, which you actually think about for the wives and the mothers. However, for fathers, there's actually a considerable percentage of fathers that go through that paternal postpartum, and for me, being a parent, as all parents know, is the biggest life change you can really have, and so I was basically writing to myself, to my future self, different ways that I thought would actually help me understand, to do just the little things, and to kind of get through the day to day, as every new parent can relate to. But so there's just different hacks, and sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're creative, that I really just try to was really writing to myself, and now hopefully to write to other fathers and parents, to really understand how to kind of make the most of your journey through parenthood. One of the things after losing Aviva is that I really I see a parent walking with a baby down the street. I just want to reach out to them and say, grab them and say, like, cherish every moment, cherish every day that you have with your precious little one. But so some of the things can be as simple as never disclose your hiding places for whatever it is. If you're hiding toys or candy from your kids, if you try to disclose it right in front of them, that's not going to end well. Another very useful one is whenever you're pouring a glass of milk or water, just fill it halfway full, rather than full up, because there's tends to be a lot of spills with toddlers. In terms of actually making light and making fun of something that can be very gross and disgusting, such as changing dirty diapers, especially those diapers that really that tend to explode and poop gets everywhere. I came up with a song when I was changing my son Hansito, and still continue to sing it to this day. So it's a famous tune, it's a famous song that I kind of changed the words to. So it goes a little something like this, if you don't mind. A weema what, a weema what, a weema what, a weema what. In the diaper, the dirty diaper, Hansito lays a turd. In the diaper, the dirty diaper, it smells like what's the word? P-U. Weem bum bum away. P-U. Weem bum bum away. And then there's and then there's just more more verses after that.
I love it.
Wipe that bottom, that dirty bottom, he'll make you feel all right. Wipe that bottom, that dirty bottom, I hope you'll sleep tonight. So yeah, it's just sometimes when you're kind of feeling the blues, the daddy blues, and you feel like you just need a good laugh. that's something that kind of, makes myself crack up, and a lot of times my kids as well. So when you're in the blues, sing the blues. And I think just being grateful for every single moment. I know it's very difficult to do, especially on 3 hours of sleep and and dirty diapers everywhere. But it's something that I can really attest to now. It's not just a saying for me. It's really just more of a practice that I try to do. And that doesn't mean that I don't get mad. That doesn't mean that, sometimes it comes to a yelling point, which I try not to do. But for all parents, I would say, and for dads in particular, the biggest advice throughout the book is really patience, and really learning that act of patience with yourself, with your child, with your wife, or your spouse. For really, patience, I think, is kind of the most underrated superhero power in the world. There's no superheroes that have an abundance of patience, but as a father, as a parent, you definitely need an abundance of that. So,
any tips on how to cultivate patience?
Yeah, in terms of, one of the things that I do is I really try to, I try to actually practice gratitude. I know it's something that is difficult to do on a day-to-day basis, but at the end of the night, I kind of sit down and kind of just journal, just write 3 things that I'm grateful for, and think about it throughout the day, and that puts things into perspective. I think trying to have that perspective in the moment is very difficult, but when you kind of look back at the day and think about how your your day has gone, is really helpful. But I think, for me, my perspective, and the one that I'd like to share with your audience, is really, because of our tragic loss, and even before this, but because of Aviva, I really wish that I could have those chances to be with her, through the temper tantrums, through the dirty diapers, through those times she, eats the candies that she's not supposed to, or she disobeys me. Those are times I'll never get back as a father. However, with my other 3 kids, when I see them and I, have those moments, have those breakdowns, and live through those, the constant reminder of Aviva, she's always on my mind, makes me, sit back and take, more patience with them, and not necessarily, yell or scream, which doesn't help at any point in time, with your kids, and really just try to, just try to embrace their feelings and say, yes, I know you're feeling upset, or you're feeling tired, or you're feeling cranky, or whatever it is. Hold them, say that you love them, and manage through that. So actually, just last night, I was in a very crowded train with my daughter Sophia, and she's 3 years old. She was having complete breakdown, meltdown, like she's screaming at the top of her lungs in this crowded train, because she wanted to push the button on the train. And unfortunately, she didn't get to do that, but I just, kneeled down with her. I think getting on the same level with them, rather than always like being this giant, like yelling down at them. But kneeled down and gave her a big hug, and really just said, I know that you're frustrated. I know that you want to do that, but there'll be a next time. So just manage those type of conflicts. It certainly kind of builds your patience over time, and tolerance, really, of what you really can tolerate.
So you gave everyone in the train a parenting lesson, is what you're saying?
No, I was just trying to save myself a little bit of embarrassment and calm her down. But she literally was hitting, tunes like an opera singer. Her lungs are incredible. But I was just trying to not, a lot of times, if maybe in my former self, I would sit there and try to condone her and yell at her, maybe even, and that, if you take yourself out of it and try to think about a third party perspective, like, that would just make me look like, for lack of a better word, and an asshole, or just a very bad father. Like I don't think yelling helps anybody. So yeah, that was that.
And you got a newborn in your arms at the moment. How's that going?
Yes, I do. So I don't know if you're listening, but hopefully you can't hear any sounds right now, because little Liliana is fast asleep, and she's kind of slung over my shoulder right now, and she hasn't made a peep. So when we started this podcast with Thomas, she was actually just getting to sleep, and she's been a very good sport. I promised Thomas that she wouldn't make a sound, and so far, I think 28 minutes in or so, we're golden on that. But yeah, so little Liliana is her name. She's actually named after her big sister Aviva. So Aviva's middle name is Lilia, and Liliana was born December 10th, 2021. So she's at the time of this recording about 5 weeks old, and she's been our rainbow baby. I know that's a term many of you might not know, but it really alludes to the fact after a child loss, there's if you do have another child, if you are fortunate and blessed to do so, they usually call them a rainbow baby. And so she came to us in December, as I said, and she's just a little charm, and her older siblings dote on her a lot. We certainly cherish and love her every day, and so nowadays when I'm getting up at 3 a.m. to change her diapers, it's actually something I'm even grateful of, and that's something that you don't think about usually as a parent, but just to be able to change her diapers is a blessing. So yeah, she's a little bundle of joy, and actually her middle name is Amali, which is spelled Amali, and it's a Swahili word that means hope. And so she's a little ray of hope. So, but thanks for letting her come on your show, Thomas.
No worries. She can come back anytime. But in terms of let's say for those who are doing it for the first time, newborn baby, have you got any tips there?
Yeah. Wow, newborn baby. So it's first of all, the first few weeks and months are certainly an adjustment, and there's that nothing can really prepare you for, even if you're uncle or aunt. We in particular have about 15 nephews and nieces, and babysat them all the time, but that never prepares you for the 24/7 all day responsibility of caring for a child. What I would say is you kind of come in with maybe expectations. Many times they're not met. Many times, things don't go as planned. I would say the more that you are prepared for that and open-minded to that, the better off you will be. But in terms of expectations, not only with yourself, but also with your spouse, you might have different ways that you would, like to sleep with them, or like to, do bath time or bedtime, or feeding. You might just have differences of opinions that you really don't come across until you're actually in the moment. And then usually when that happens, there can be some conflict, and there almost will be some conflict in terms of how you decide things, especially if you're both strong-minded and strong-willed, like my wife and I are. And so negotiation and managing those differences of opinion is very important. But I'm going to sound like a broken record here and kind of go back to patience. You're going to be in for loss of sleep, and some definitely some hormone changes, even for fathers. But really just try to practice a lot of patience and have that perspective that it's going to be a long journey, and it's not always going to be that difficult. However difficult it is, and however frustrated you can be, there's a lot of positives. There's a lot of really cherish a lot of those. There's little moments when your baby might give you a little smile when maybe she or he is just taking a little number two, but it might be a little smile. But just cherish those small victories, small wins, and that kind of will give you the fortitude to endure through those tough moments.
Sounds like you're doing a great job. Is there anything that I should have asked you about today?
One of the things actually just when you said that, I just thought about, the sleeping thing. So sleeping is a really, really big topic on many new parents' minds, and there's 10,000 different ways that you can try to sleep train your baby, or try to put them down, or swaddle them, etc. A lot of differences in opinions, and I kind of wanted to bring this up because it was actually one of those big ones that I was ideologically opposed to having the baby sleep with us in bed, and I wanted baby at that time Hansito to really sleep in his own room, and we're gonna sleep train them, and he's gonna be able to sleep through the night. And I had these crazy expectations, right, that I was going to be this pretty surgical type of approach to sleep training. That those were unfounded, and my wife's vantage point, she's actually from a big Cuban American family. She's the 10th out of 10 children. So my father-in-law, who actually lives with us right now, has had 10 children. I always say I want to be like half the man that he was as a father, but her family always slept in bed. So as from the newborn stage, so pretty much anything under a year, the baby, while they're nursing, would actually sleep in bed, and that would actually produce the best effects in her opinion. And so we're going back and forth and battling through this, and I'm like, we can't do this, and what happens to our sleep and our personal life and everything else. But I started doing a lot more research, and she encouraged me to kind of read more into it, and did more thinking. And so I know this is not mainstream, and I know what Western doctors usually tell us from a liability standpoint of what the danger is. But when you think about mammals, and as humans, we're all mammals, every single mammal on the face of the planet sleeps with their mother. And you think about horses, you think about dogs, you think about cats, you think about monkeys, any animal you think of, they're always with their mother. And there's actually this rhythm of this comfort effect from hearing the heartbeat, let alone being on the same cycle with lactation cycle with mom, but being able to kind of nuzzle closely to her, and being able to kind of feed on demand, which at the newborn stage it is, produce so much better sleep for us, and better results for us, because as a dad, I wasn't necessarily getting up in the middle of the night and going to the room and picking up baby and coming back and not being able to fall asleep and going through all that. And so there's definitely personal incentive for me to kind of make that work. I was always afraid of rolling on to baby, but there's ways to kind of work that out through having little pillows dividers in between, or etc. But mom was always very good with being able to kind of cuddle her or cuddle him and have him close to her chest. And it's amazing the effects. Baby was very happy, mom was happy, I was happy. And when you look at science and look at nature in and of itself, I think this world, as we've kind of realized the benefits of breastfeeding, I think there can be a whole another revolution of sleeping, and sleeping with babies. And so this full disclosure, this is not doctor's advice, because I know what the liabilities are there. But I do know, I looked into that as well. And when you look at the statistics, usually those that do roll over on their baby or have these accidents tend to be, either obese or bad sleep disorders, or drugs or alcohol related type of incidents. But when you compare those with actually infants that die in the cribs, for different reasons, from suffocation or whatever else it is, those statistics are actually comparable, and there's not necessarily a higher risk of sleeping in the bed versus having a baby in the crib. There's lots of things that can go wrong there. And so, yeah, I just did a lot more research for myself. And even though I was diametrically opposed to it at first, I kind of came full circle, and I'm definitely an advocate of being able to sleep with your baby. And it's funny because sometimes a baby can be like pretty far away from us, or from mom, and through the middle of the night, she would kind of creep closer and closer to mom by the end of the night. So it's funny. There's almost this like magnetic force between mom and baby.
Nice. Where is the best place for people to find you and also to buy the book?
Sure. Yeah, I have a website. It's hanskullberg.com. There's different places you can kind of sign up if you want to keep in the loop for further children's books that are coming down the loop. And there's one that's currently in the works right now. But in terms of Twitter, it's Aviva's Daddy. So AVIVAS DADDY. That's on Twitter. That's on Instagram. It's also on Gmail. So it's avivasdaddy@gmail.com. And you might ask why do I have my name like that? I always want to kind of make sure people know that I'm Aviva's dad as well, and it's very important. Actually, one thing that you didn't ask was one of the questions that is very difficult to answer sometimes, but is kind of how many children do you have? And that's always very difficult, but it's something. It's another chance for me to get to talk about Aviva, and so I see myself as always Aviva's daddy, and that is where you can find me. But you asked about the book. The book is on Amazon. It is on Barnes & Noble. It is, any book outlet that you have online, you can find it there. Baby Aviva Orangutan Diva. It's been a bestseller on Amazon, but if you do read it, if you do like it, feel free to leave a review, and that helps me and just really helps Aviva get her word out. So hopefully it inspires you, and I'm really appreciative for all of your support.
Well, I will leave a review, and I reiterate, you're doing a great job. So thank you for everything that you've shared today.
Thank you, Thomas. It's been a pleasure to be on the show, and thank you so much.